to Coffee with Coker, a healthcare business podcast published by the Coker Group. I'm your host, Mark Reibel. Here with me today is our producer, Jessica Combs. The Coker Group is a national healthcare consulting firm. We work with healthcare organizations throughout the U.S. We've been around for over 35 years, and we work with all kinds of different healthcare services organizations on a variety of things. And this is our podcast, Coffee with Coker. This is going to be episode 1, and with this episode, it's going to be a little bit unique from many of our episodes that will be to come. But what we thought would be helpful is start out our podcast series with just a little bit of background, a little bit of information. So we ask you guys to bear with us a little bit. This is going to be a little bit different and may end up talking a little bit more about ourselves than we will intend to do in subsequent episodes. But I think it probably will help to provide a little bit of background and context for who we are and what we're trying to do here. And ultimately, looking forward to engaging with our audience in future episodes. So I guess with that, we should just jump right in. And I think what we thought we would do here is today is kind of just go through, instead of me going on and on about with a bunch of information thrown at you guys, I thought maybe it'd be more helpful for Jess and I to just talk through some kind of common questions and have a little bit of Q&A. And that will probably cover some of the content we're trying to get at here in this episode. But again, really just want to provide some of that background and, set the tone for future episodes. And so with that, I guess maybe the first thing that would be helpful for you guys is just who we are and describe that a little bit. And so as I mentioned in the intro, my name is Mark Reibel, and I am a senior vice president at Coker. My background is financial services, particularly focusing on transaction services, mergers and acquisitions. But I work a lot with hospitals and health systems on various transactions and have done that for a number of years, and also do a lot of strategy work as well. So, that's part of the focus. A lot of times dovetails from transactions. We'll talk more about that in future episodes as well. But I guess, Jess, why don't you say hi and give a little bit of your background?
Hi, everybody. My name is Jess Combs, or Jessica Combs, and I just have been working with Coker in the financial services realm as well. I've been focusing more on the physician compensation side of things, more of the redesign of compensation models with health systems, and I also do a bit of fair market value work. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Jess is our resident rocket scientist. So she's many skills and characteristics there. So, but anyway, we're excited to be doing this podcast now, which is a new thing for Coker. And although this type of content certainly is not new, and we'll talk about that in a second and kind of why we're doing this. But one of the things I wanted to cover real quick was, what is Coffee with Coker? And I guess the easy explanation or quick description is that, in general, our discussions here will focus on a variety of things, obviously anything related to the healthcare industry, but really focus a lot on current events, market trends, any significant developments that impact the healthcare industry or organizations within the industry. And, what we want to do is inform and engage. The point isn't to just get on here and market our services necessarily, but really have substantive discussions with people on things that affect the industry and affect our clients and affect other stakeholders in the industry. So with that, like I said, we're going to go through a few questions. So I guess, Jess, fire away at me and I'll try to not to go down too many rabbit trails.
All right. Well, why don't we start with the basics? Maybe we can just explain a little bit about who Coker is and what we do as a firm.
Yeah, sure. No, I think that's a great place to start. If you're not familiar with the Coker Group, just real quick, we've been around, as I said before, over 35 years, and we work exclusively in the healthcare industry and really work with healthcare services organizations and other kind of allied, quote unquote, allied healthcare type organizations. And we'll talk more about that maybe in a minute, but we're a consulting firm. I'd say we have 4 core verticals, if you will. strategy, operations, finance, and technology. Within those areas, of course, there's a lot, as one might imagine. Those are fairly broad. So there are a lot of specific things that we do for clients within those areas. But, as a snapshot, I'd say everything from in the financial services area, we do everything from transaction advisory, mergers and acquisitions, facilitation, joint ventures, hospital physician alignment, strategic joint ventures, those types of things, as well as physician comp. And we do all kinds of consulting around physician compensation compliance, as well as physician comp design or redesign, negotiations between physicians and hospitals on compensation, fair market value opinions, and so on. So, those are a couple examples in the finance world. As it relates to technology, for instance, we do a lot in EHR implementation, EHR vendor selection, project management, those types of things, as well as cybersecurity, which is anyone can imagine. You don't have to be a technology expert to know that is a major area of importance, particularly when you're dealing with healthcare data. On the operations and strategy side, again, there's a lot there, but we do a lot of revenue cycle optimization, revenue cycle management. We work in executive search and fulfilling roles, whether it's on an interim basis or permanent basis, on C-suite management, a number of other things. I don't want to go into everything and take up too much time on that. But really and truly, we say anything that relates to the business side of healthcare is where Coker's expertise lies. And so we have over 100 people throughout the U.S. that all they do is live and breathe, creating value and solving problems for healthcare organizations. So I think that probably sums it up best.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's talk maybe just a little bit more about kind of what we're trying to do here and maybe tie into that who would be most interested in what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, I think that's great because, again, this episode aside, the goal of this podcast, again, is to inform, to educate, and also just engage. And, there are a lot of people, a lot of individuals, a lot of organizations that may be interested in what we're talking about here. But, some of the main things that we want to do is bring relevant topics or address relevant subject matter that is important to anyone working in this industry, whether you are a C-level executive of a hospital or health system, or maybe you are an administrator of a medical practice, or if you're a business that, whether you're a vendor or you're a services provider to those types of organizations, there's a lot out there. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the industry right now, and there always is. I think we could all agree that it's continuously changing and evolving, and sometimes that creates challenges, and just sometimes keeping up with some of these things is a challenge in and of itself. And so we want to address those things. And we want to really make the content of this podcast relevant and meaningful to our audience in such a way that, hopefully can bring some new insights or different insights to some of these issues or some of these topics. In some cases, maybe bring up a topic altogether that people may not be as familiar with or didn't know was important, but does need to be on their radar and they do need to be aware of, or something to look to the future in terms of preparation and expectations. So it really is about meaningful content and engaging our audience.
Awesome. Well, maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the topics we envision covering, or kind of tease what we might have coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a lot in the pipeline in terms of what we want to talk about. One of the things we want to do is bring some of Coker's people in to go over some of the specific topics, as well as outside people, whether it's representatives from clients that we've worked with, or it's, other types of professionals in the industry that can speak to a different topic. So we're definitely going to see more of that. And then in terms of the topics themselves, I'll tell you right now, we have a number of things that we're talking about. One of those things that's going to be coming very soon is the broad topic of value-based reimbursement, and what we hear generally referred to as this kind of volume to value shift in terms of how the healthcare system works and where it's kind of going. And so that's a very broad topic that is going to set up, I think, multiple specific topics and discussions related to that, where there's so much there to unravel that we get questions every day from clients, whether it's, how do we prepare for MACRA legislation or the MACRA regulations, or how do we look at quality-based payment models and moving our physician compensation models from RVU-driven models to more quality incentives. And then, you get into other topics related to risk-based payment models, alternative payment models for payer contracting. So whether they're value-based or however you want to call it, risk-based contracting is not necessarily a new concept, but we're definitely seeing a shift in the marketplace as it relates to how they're becoming not only more common or more normal, if you will, but moving towards that direction where I think you will see that they do become somewhat of the new normal. So that's one example of a topic where I think we're going to have a lot to go over and a lot to offer to the audience there. Other things, again, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about with some outside folks that we work with. We work a lot with healthcare attorneys. And so we are going to be sitting down with a couple of different attorneys, different law firms that we worked with regularly with clients, things related to transactions, for instance, or hospital physician joint venture arrangements. And it'll be nice to get that perspective too, because obviously we can come at it from a business operations finance perspective, but needless to say, those types of arrangements in any type of transaction is very driven by regulations and the kind of regulatory landscape that in and of itself is continuously seeming to change. So it's always refreshing for me to get those perspectives from the people that specialize in the legal regulatory aspect of that. Again, those are a few examples. We're going to be talking about things such as revenue cycle optimization, turnarounds, executive compensation models, and kind of trends in that area. We're also going to be talking about technology. I reference kind of what we do on cybersecurity. We definitely want to talk more about that, and that really this is becoming, it is a major priority for any healthcare services entity out there. And so we're doing a lot there, but there's a lot of just unknowns and unfamiliar territory as it relates to that. The healthcare world is still learning about and getting used to. So those are some examples. Obviously there will be a lot more to come. We're excited to bring it. And, the idea here is not to sit and lecture and kind of go on and on about, boring content or more dry content. We want to make it engaging. So I think getting some of that outside perspective will be of value.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for some of the guests that we might, be able to have on, and it'll be fun to interact with everyone in the firm. So we had a few other questions here. We've kind of touched a little bit on all of them, but maybe we could go back for a minute to the format of the podcast. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we've specifically said kind of what our vision is for that.
Yeah, no, good point. I did kind of allude to it there, but I think we should explain that a little further, because Coker for years has been doing actually a webinar series that we traditionally have called Coffee with Coker. And it's been highly attended, and we've always received very positive feedback on it. And so it's been a rewarding endeavor for us. But this is really about taking it to the next level. So we've kind of been referring to this as Coffee with Coker 2.0 almost, in that we want to continue to bring relevant information out there to the marketplace that's interested in these topics. Sometimes that works well, kind of walking through the traditional PowerPoint slide presentation. Maybe it's data heavy, or there's just a lot of information that needs to be absorbed. And we speak at conferences, and so we're used to giving those types of presentations. But what we want to do and take it to the kind of the next level, or a next step, if you will, with the podcast, is kind of go beyond the slide deck format and have a little bit more of an engaging discussion. So in terms of the format, our idea here is really just to
to have people on that familiar on a day-to-day basis, very knowledgeable and experienced on the topics we're talking about, where we can kind of drill down and not just focus on, an academic style lecture format, but we can go back and forth and ask some of the questions that I know people are interested in, because we get questions all the time, literally from clients on things. And anytime we do a presentation, usually there's follow-up questions that are more specific, maybe a little more nuanced, related to one organization's individual situation and the kind of unique characteristics of whatever scenario they may be involved with. But this is an opportunity for us, hopefully, to drill down on some of those things. So sometimes we will come with the slide presentation where, there's that kind of element to it. But we also want to have a little bit more back and forth, kind of interview style, like we're doing now, just between Jess and I, but, bringing others into those discussions where we can ask some of the questions and maybe even open it up if the topic's right and the guests are appropriate, to a little bit of debate on things, because there's a lot. We readily recognize that we may not have all the answers. And if we try to claim that we do, then, it's going to be pretty obvious that no one can truly claim that, at least in kind of the world we live in. So we want to recognize that and, get into some of these issues in a way that you may not see others do. And if you're like me, I enjoy hearing different sides of issues. I enjoy hearing different people's perspectives and kind of what they bring from their own individual experiences or things that they've seen or their, different areas of expertise. And ultimately, I feel like that helps me understand an issue better. And if it's an issue that affects my business, my job and my responsibilities and the organization that I'm representing, then those are relevant to me. And I want to try to cover that. So that's really kind of our goal. And in terms of the format, I feel like that'll be a one way to get down and accomplish that.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds great. And I'm actually really excited for what we've got coming. So we talked about a few guests that we envision participating in podcasts. Is there anyone else you wanted to highlight? I know we mentioned a few lawyers we work with and Coker Associates.
Yeah, definitely. You'll hear from other people within the company. Obviously, I want to make sure when we're talking about different topics, obviously we want to get the perspectives of the people that kind of live and breathe in those areas of expertise every day. But yeah, outside perspective is just as, if not more valuable in some of these areas, because again, I kind of use the example of getting the perspective of the attorneys that are experts in the legal and regulatory environment as it relates to healthcare, which is essentially everything a healthcare organization can do, is impacted in some way by legal and or regulatory requirements or expectations. So that and we have good working relationships with a lot of healthcare lawyers out there. And I'm always impressed when I can kind of get that perspective from them, because again, we can only bring so much to some of these different deals we're working on, but also not just, attorneys and consultants, but others. For instance, there's a lot of companies that are providing technology to the healthcare world that, I think we should look at more. Myself and, Coker, as in our structure, we're not affiliated with any single EHR vendor or any IT vendor or anything like that, where, we're recommending a system just because we have a relationship. We truly want to understand and be knowledgeable about all different types of technology platforms that a hospital or a practice may implement, because ultimately our obligation is to the client, and those are our clients. And so it's not about the system itself, but how they're using it, how they're optimizing it, how it's affecting whether it's a financial situation or if it's on the clinical side or another business operational aspect, whatever that may be. We want to understand them. So I think there's a lot of technology solutions and companies behind them that, already in the healthcare space. And then there are others that are coming up that are offering all kinds of new solutions to the healthcare world that, honestly, we can all agree, the healthcare operational management side of things, as well as the patient process management side of things, can definitely benefit from technology. What I've learned though is there's no magic or silver bullet, so to speak, in terms of magical solution that one technology can solve all problems. So I think it's important to understand that. And that was my very long-winded way of saying I think we need to bring in some folks from those types of companies that do have those kind of solutions, so that, again, this isn't a platform for them to simply talk about how great they are, but really get into the issues of, okay, you're doing this. How does that help a hospital, or how does that help a practice, or why is that relevant to kind of the current landscape? And those are the types of discussions we want to have, and frankly, direct questions we want to be asking. So those are a few examples. I think, there's a lot of that out there, though. There's a lot of organizations, services, solutions, whatever it may be, that are ingrained within the healthcare industry that plays a very significant role in that care delivery process. So we want to get down into some of those, and hopefully, have some productive conversations on that.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that'll be a lot of fun to kind of just be able to drill down more into the issues and just have some bigger discussions surrounding that. I know in a lot of our day-to-day, it's more surrounding just the solution and not really getting a chance to expand upon discussing the issue and multiple views on that.
Right.
So, well, with that, do you want to kind of start wrapping, and at least we'll explain to people where they can find more information about the podcast and what we're doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to what we have to say here. Again, it was just important to provide a little bit of this background context. I know this content will be substantive for you all, so I appreciate you checking with us and kind of tuning in. In terms of where to find us, obviously, you can probably, one of the easier places is starting with our website. So cokergroup.com. And if you're not familiar, that's COKER group.com. But you can also find us on social media. So particularly on Twitter at Coker Group, and then on LinkedIn as well. You can just search for Coker Group there in LinkedIn, and you'll find us pretty easily. So we want to make us, Coker, and our people, accessible to you all. And so that's one of the things, though, that we wanted to do is in that whole kind of effort to make this more engaging and to engage with the market and our audience. We want you all to participate with us in this. So we would love to hear feedback as it relates to suggestions. Maybe you have a topic you'd like us to cover, or specific questions you'd like us to answer. I know one of the things we're going to be doing from time to time in terms of an episode in and of itself is just kind of Q&A. We'll kind of keep our rolling list of questions that come in, and we'll make sure we address all of them that come in. So we may not address them all directly. We may try to cover them on an actual podcast episode, or otherwise we'll respond directly to you. But submit your questions or suggestions via Twitter. You can also go through the website, the contact page there, or just email the email address feedback@cokergroup.com. That's feedback@cokergroup.com. Send your questions there. And like I said, we will respond to you, and we'll keep our kind of rolling list of questions so that we can address them or figure out kind of if there are certain trends and topics that you all want to hear about, then we'll make sure to incorporate that into our kind of calendar of discussions, because we want this content to be something that's relevant to the marketplace and the audience. And so you guys, please feel free. We really invite you to provide that feedback. And so, for future episodes, let us know if there's somebody specifically in the industry, like someone at a specific organization you think would be good for us to talk to. Let us know. If you're that person and you're listening and you say, hey, I'd love to talk to you guys about such and such, then reach out to us. And because, if it's relevant to the market, then we want to be talking about it. So you're going to hear a lot more of that. And I'll reiterate that in each episode, but we're looking forward to hearing from you. Coker has been out there, like I said, for a number of years, whether it's at speaking, presenting at conferences, and doing presentations on panels. And of course, we've written many books and on various topics, and regularly write articles and those types of things. And so we really value our audience. We have a great deal of respect for the people that make up this industry, and we want to do what we can to help and contribute value, and ultimately, whatever we can possibly do to kind of help organizations in the industry accomplish whatever they're going after. So that's a fundamental goal for us as it relates to the Coker Group. But even more than that, with the podcast, we want to make sure we're talking about things that are relevant to you all. So we welcome that feedback, and we really look forward to talking to you all in the future on these things. So please stay posted, keep checking back, and there will be more to come very soon.